Welcome, everyone. As we meet in the energies of Libra, we move forward together as an esoteric group. We have been studying the science of relations, and as we took up the study and use of the technique of light for the dissipation of glamour, we've moved into the study of illusion. And with that, we must consider the origin of our ideas and the ideals that we hope to embody. Libra, the light that moves to rest. This is the light that oscillates until a point of balance is achieved. It is the light which is distinguished by a moving up and down. There is a balance, kind of equilibrium that is established at each equinox. And let us keep in mind the mantra, the words of Libra, the seventh sign. I choose the way that leads between the two great lines of force. And as we have discussed in previous sessions, as we talk about illusion, the great illusion is the ordinary wheel, the progression of the signs, where the word says, let choice be made to reverse the wheel. And as we have moved from the influence of Virgo, the zodiacal sign that we're told rules 9 signs, Virgo gestation governing the 9 signs from Virgo to Capricorn, which is the ordinary wheel. Let us choose to reverse that order as if we are on the reversed wheel. And we consider now as we move forward together, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, and Taurus, that we might conceive this as a period of gestation for us, for the seed planted in Virgo of soul responsiveness. And it is our opportunity to develop in each sign leading up to the conclave, the great meeting of Shambhala in 2025, this meeting of the spiritual hierarchy. So let us continue to ponder in this great field of space, this field of intelligent activity, what we've learned and how we can integrate more in relation to glamour and illusion and the essential relations as we begin to move further in depth with the 5th essential relation, the relation of the centers above the diaphragm and below the diaphragm. We covered form in our first session in Virgo, and we've moved through some integrative sessions dealing with consciousness or quality, and we've begun to integrate the teachings on the Devas, focusing always on the soul, the solar angel that must put out the light of the lunar angels, and then, for lack of warmth and light, that which has served to hinder no longer is. So we hold that intention as we continue. Now, Ellen, if you would take us through this definition.
Idea ideas, ideation. Ideation is the process of forming ideas from conception to implementation. Ideation is expressed via graphical, written, or verbal methods and arises from past or present knowledge, influences, opinions, experiences, and personal convictions.
Let's just pause for a moment and consider how we each are really bombarded with ideas in our daily life. And then we consider ideas when we meet in group formation. So this process of ideation has been going on in our experience all of our lives. And as we move along the path, how do we consider and integrate the higher that will be sometimes in conflict with our usual influences, the opinions we have come to know and trust, and are from previous experiences on the lower planes? Heike, would you read this sloka from heart?
Sloka 128, Ideas and Ideation. The process of conceiving ideas is deeply rooted in the foundation of being. Without ideation, there cannot be striving to knowledge or creation. How can a spirit create if it has not been persuaded to do so by ideation? How can a spirit speak about the highest principle if no ideation has been laid in the foundation of being? The values of the spirit are distinguished according to this criterion. Without ideation, this manifestation would be nothing more than the dance of a skeleton. But as you see, a balm is now needed to heal the putrefying portions of humankind.
So we continue with our work to dissipate glamour and to dispel illusion with this idea that we are part of creating a balm to heal these, what the sloka calls putrefying portions of humankind that are filling our experience with ideas that cannot move humanity forward. And we must instill in ourselves first, and then share with humanity the ideas that will assist all of humanity in moving forward. So let's recall for emphasis today this passage from our session on sound and the word and silence as we move forward together. Andrea, are you able to read today?
Yes, I can. Every word, differentiated or synthesized, affects the Deva kingdoms and hence the form-building aspects of manifestation. No sound is ever made without producing a corresponding response in Deva substance and driving multitudes of tiny lives to take specific forms. These forms persist and carry out their functions just as long as the sound which caused them is prolonged, and the specific will energy of the one who initiated the sound is directed towards the living form. This is equally true of a solar logos enunciating the Om and thus producing the planetary system, of a planetary logos sounding his planetary word and producing a planetary scheme, of an adept producing results for the helping of humanity on the physical plane, and of an ordinary human being who, in much differentiated, diversified speech, expresses an inner purpose or state of mind, and thus builds a form or vehicle in Deva substance. The majority of human beings as yet build unconsciously, and the form constructed is either of a beneficent or maleficent agency, according to the underlying motive or purpose of the man, and will carry out his will as long as its term of being persists. We began our consideration of ideas, illusion, and ideation with our session on form. Let us continue to become aware of the higher devas whom we must obey, and those devas with whom we must cooperate.
So let us pause and consider this teaching and how energy follows thought, that we must be so cautious and mindful of our thoughts. Ellen, would you read this for us, please?
From the rays and the initiations. If you will note your own present attitudes and actions, you will discover that primarily, I might add almost necessarily, they center around yourselves, your own recognitions, your own grasp of truth, and your own progress upon the path. But as you achieve initiate status, self-interest declines until it disappears. And as an ancient word has it, only God is left. Only that remains in consciousness, which is that which is beauty, goodness, and truth, which is not form, but quality, which is that which lies behind the form, and that which indicates destiny, soul, place, and status. Ponder on these words, for they convey to you where, as evolution goes on, you will later lay the emphasis. In considering the word express, the second idea in Rule 14, I can, I believe, make this distinction somewhat clearer. When the beginner on the path ponders the significance of expression, he is occupied with his ability to express the truth which he theoretically recognizes, but to which he cannot as yet give form. We cannot as yet touch the Buddhic plane. This is valuable because it feeds his aspiration, centers his attention upon himself, and increases his naive self-interest. This frequently presents its own problems, such as a sense of failure or an undue registration of success, or it fails to develop a sense of proportion.
So as we allow this teaching to penetrate, there is a clue in the state in the first paragraph or first part, that which is not form but quality, that which lies behind the form. And the clue is in the next statement, the quality that stands behind the form that indicates destiny, soul, place, and status. As you ponder on these words, consider then the four groups that Master DK tells us we must consider. The first group are family and immediate circle. That the quality of our destiny that we discover. The second group, that larger community, our nation, which we can consider as our learning gradually over time, the quality of our soul as we experience and serve in that larger community and in our nation. Place. We find our place drawn to the quality of our serving groups, and we find our place in that service and the quality of that place. And the group that we have not yet considered as a group, our ashramic affiliation. Once we identify as soul, we can eventually begin to sense the quality and stand on the periphery with that ashramic affiliation. So consider these four groups, those four indications which we experience first as a form in the group form, and then begin to gradually have a greater and greater understanding of the qualities that are being expressed in each of those groups that indicate our destiny, our soul quality, our place in service, and eventual status in ashramic affiliation. Ponder on this. And let us endeavor to gradually move further from our naive self-interest and begin to function in an ever greater way as a serving group. We are points of light within a greater light. We are strands of loving energy within the stream of love divine. We are points of sacrificial fire focused within the fiery will of God, and thus we stand. We are a way by which humanity may achieve. We are a source of strength, enabling them to stand. We are beams of light shining upon their way, and thus we stand. And standing thus, revolve. And tread this way, the ways of all human beings, of all humanity, and yet know the ways of God, and thus we stand. We stand today in Libra, at the point of balance, at the point of equilibrium. We stand as we move forward on the reversed wheel. And you may take a moment to just consider what we covered when we last met, that for the reception of impressions of ideals and ideas from the hierarchy, the spiritual triad, and achieving that higher alignment and vibration, that we must understand that it is largely a question of matter and vibration. And the abstract levels of the mental plane consist of those three higher levels. The first being that termed the third subplane, spiritual discernment, where our causal bodies are located. And we're building into our bodies the lower levels with higher Devic substance as we move forward, so that the personality can, as a conscious whole, recognize and obey that higher self. That third subplane, sight, clairvoyance, building and becoming spiritual discernment. So Ben, would you read this powerful realization for us to ponder?
From the most esoteric standpoint, man is a deva. He is spirit and deva substance, united through the work of conscious deva energy. He unites within himself the three aspects of the deity. He is, while in objectivity, the self, the not self, and the intelligent link in a very vital sense. He is Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma in synthetic manifestation. He is the medium whereby the will of God, the love of God, and the mind of God become intelligible and apparent. He is positive electrical force plus negative electrical force plus the equilibrizing medium. He is the flame, the fire, and the spark in essential manifestation. He is electric fire, solar fire, and fire by friction.
So let us ponder this, that cohesion, the unity, the triplicities that stand behind the illusion which is man's physical body. All this substands that illusion. Is there one of these statements with which you can most easily identify?
For me, it would be number 3. He is the medium whereby the will of God, the love of God, and the mind of God become intelligible and apparent.
So in the coming week, ponder on this cohesion that is there beyond our physical presence, and sense the cohesion in your etheric aura, the cohesion in your astral aura, and the cohesion in your mental aura that is coming together as you integrate personality with soul. Another reminder of what we have covered in the past, that to be receptive of impressions of ideals and ideas from the hierarchy, we have to attain a certain percentage of that higher matter on the second subplanes, taste and imagination, where purification and subjugation describe the work to be done. And this involves the lower mind and the 3 lower vehicles. So it is taste, imagination, which must be subjugated and purified. And eventually, hypothetically, at the second initiation, one moves on the causal body, or the causal body moves from spiritual discernment to a point of response to group vibration. Gives us the impetus for what we must achieve in terms of that purification and subjugation. So let's remember Master DK's words from Initiation Human and Solar. To be conscious on a plane and to have control on that plane are 2 very different conditions. It becomes apparent how remote is the possibility of our approximating more than the general trend of the cosmic scheme. But if we keep that in mind, it helps us to understand the importance of humility and our purpose for developing group understanding on the subplanes, thus using our creative imagination and in a purificatory manner that we can integrate more, and that we must command these devas, the lower bodies of devic substance, and cooperate with the devas that are assisting us on those planes to achieve the transitions, which we note in a transient manner. There's a momentary vibration, a current, a voltage, or a frequency that we can attain. It's not long lasting, it's not permanent, it's not enduring. But on, for example, the astral field, we can have those transient experiences like a flash that allow us to do the transmutation. But he tells us translation is the secret. So let's move forward and investigate how the aura can be made the medium of light, and the light which should shine through can be intensified. Heike, would you read the remainder of this, starting with centers?
Centers are brought into activity by the cultivation of certain major virtues, and not by meditation or concentration upon the centers. They are brought automatically into the needed radiatory condition by right living, high thinking, and loving activity. These virtues may seem to you dull and uninteresting, but they are most potent and scientifically effective in bringing the centers into the desired radiatory activity. When the task is done, and when all the centers are living spheres of outgoing radiatory activity, they swing into each other's orbit, so that the initiate becomes a center of living light, and not a composite of 7 radiate centers. Think on this.
It might be a useful activity to go back to the listings of the virtues for the various rays and the virtues that must be developed, the different rays, and consider how one can bring those automatically into right living, high thinking, and loving activity. Ellen, would you read this for us, please?
The secret. This is called, in esotericism, the secret of translation. I might bring the general concept underlying those words down to the intelligence of the average student by telling him that when a man really understands the elevating power of the aspiration, he can begin to work with the secret of translation. Students must lose sight of the foolish and erroneous idea that aspiration is really an emotional attitude. It is not. It is a scientific process governing evolution itself. When given free scope, and duly followed, it is the mode par excellence whereby the matter aspect or the whole personality is raised up into heaven. The effect of continued aspiration, when followed by right action, is to bring about three things. First, a stimulation of the higher atoms of the three bodies. Second, the discarding, as a result of this stimulation, of those atomic substances when present occultly hold the aspirant down to earth. And thirdly, the increasing of the magnetic attractive power of the higher atoms, which draw to themselves atoms of higher vibration to take the place of those of lower vibration. One point I should like to make here, in order to correct an almost universal wrong mental attitude. Right atoms of high vibration are attracted into a man's body or bodies by the power of the united attraction of the atoms already present, and not primarily by the will of the soul, except insofar as that will acts upon the high-grade atoms already present and responsive.
There's so much in this particular teaching from Esoteric Psychology, Volume 1. And it interrelates with the virtues that we practice by right living, high thinking, that builds in the higher Devic atomic substance, which is then synthesized in the bodies. So we will come back to this in each of our next couple of Sundays together. So we started with this particular definition, and it really does tell us how we create the higher ideas by this right living and right thinking. We're bringing into ourselves, with cooperation with the higher devas, the ability to express in our symbology that we utilize, the written forms that we put forth, the verbal words and methods that we use, all that came from the past, but it is to eliminate the past that is not aligned with those higher virtues, with the higher ideas, and to eliminate the lower influences, to eliminate the opinions, to eliminate our experiences or our recalling of those experiences, and move forward to the higher always in cooperation with the higher devas. Andrea, would you read this for us, please?
Ideas very seldom come into the world consciousness and into the human mind direct from the intuitional levels. The stage of human development today does not yet permit this. They can come from the intuitional levels only when there is a very highly developed soul contact, a potent mind control, a trained intelligence, a purified emotional body, and a good glandular equipment as the result of the above requirements. Ponder on this thought. Most ideas, when of a very high order, are stepped down into the consciousness of a disciple by this disciple's master and are imparted to the disciple through mental telepathy, and as a result of the disciple's sensitivity to the psychic gift waves, as the Tibetan teaching calls them.
Again, the impetus for us to continue to train ourselves as intelligent workers, to improve our soul contact, to purify the emotional body, and to maintain our physical bodies so that we are able to touch the Buddhic plane with the impress of the soul. For we so often labor under the illusion that our ideas and impressions are our own. Andrea, would you read this for us, please?
Ideas are also sensed in the interplay between disciples. Frequently, when disciples meet together and thus stimulate each other's minds and centralize each other's focused attention, they can unitedly make contact with the world of ideas that would otherwise be impossible and bring through the newer concepts into being. Again, certain great ideas are to be found existing as currents of energy upon the mental plane and can there be contacted and forced into embodiment through the trained attention of disciples. These currents of mental activity, colored by a basic idea, are placed there by the hierarchy. When thus contacted and discovered, the neophyte is apt to regard his achievement in a personal way and attribute the idea to his own wisdom and power. You will note, therefore, the great need for right understanding of that which is contacted, as well as for right interpretation.
Many groups now are accessing what I call these downloads, particularly in group formation. And from my own experience, what I've learned is that one must, if you're not familiar with the particular methodology that the group is utilizing to translate what they're getting and their impressions, one can misunderstand. So it's this ability to discern the intention of the group and the way in which they're linking the ideas to their particular teacher who has had prominence in their minds, and how then that teaching has to get translated into a form that can express without or with greater understanding, so that the groups that they're working with in a larger sense can truly penetrate and align with them on that higher level, instead of, as I say, walking away from the opportunity to create this greater synthesis of understanding. One of the key factors that I've been able to utilize in my own expression is to listen into the sort of key thought, and if it resounds with a particular individual's own wisdom and power, and they're kind of attributing it to something that is not yet of that highest level, knowing which components of what's being shared really reflect the next higher level, without any judgment or criticism, which is why we're doing, and we will move in group formation to eliminate the criticism, judgment that might be come into these coalescence of different groups coming together. So we can be in an illusory process in terms of what ideas we formulate as our own creations. So as we move forward, we're going in our future meetings together to go more deeply into this notion of intuition and what we experience as these fleeting moments of a high freedom that we can achieve during our life struggles. And we'll take off in our next meeting together from this point, considering intuitive reactions to truth that do take place. And we'll focus on integration and how we can, as a apologies for the abrupt comments on the steps that we have moving forward. Let's close today with this Sloka 20 from Agni Yoga Heart. The invisible world is quite visible when the eye is unobstructed. You do not need mediumistic phenomena to sense the light of the highest world. Indeed, you can ascend only to the highest. That is why all the ruses of lower magic, relying as they do on force, pale in comparison with the first light of the heart. Though not many people know the fires of the heart, these torches must provide light for all.